Now let's move into work plans and cost estimates. A good department work plan identifies the organization's budgeted work for the fiscal year. It matches the work plan with the proposed budget, and it helps to separate the nice to do from the essential activities. And then it forces decision making based on available resources and capabilities. Part of the department work plan should be to conduct an annual review of each program and link that program to organizational vision and mission statements. Also, to assess the effectiveness of programs compared to the goals, objectives, standards, and such for that program or service, and to make sure you're getting good customer satisfaction. Then, initiate a level of performance review to assess how well a program meets agreed upon levels of satisfaction and service, making sure we meet those standards that we've set out. It's important to remember that personnel services often account for 50 to 90% of an operating budget. There's usually a fixed growth measure, we call those steps in some cases, for inflation and growth. The steps account for a cost of full-time, permanent part-time staff, and they identify an annual allowance of growth, usually related to a percentage of a base salary or a base wage. Now let's look at how we look at those increases. We can look at it as a cost of living increase. Sometimes this will be called a COLA, cost of living allowance. And this is usually an increase based on the inflation rate, just to keep up with the inflation. And it's usually aligned with the percentage of growth to base salary. Then we can also look at a regular percentage growth to a base salary related to steps. So most employees are on a fixed or stepped salary range, meaning their salary is related to an increase with COLA or an increase based on percentage growth with a step. So let's take a look at this. We have two different employees here. We have a program supervisor and assistant director, with step 1 being their base salary now. Then we can look at step 2, 3 is the upcoming step increases for their salaries per fiscal year with the budget cycle. So step increases can be based on basically one of two things: a fixed percentage, for example, 4.3% increase from step to step, or a cost of living increase, which is determined by and usually a governing body, board of directors or whatnot. Some people go with the government rate of cost of living index and stuff like that. But a good example would just be like the inflation rate 3.1%, so therefore the cost of living increase is going to be a 3.1% from step to step. Then we can look at staffing issues as far as personnel services goes. And this begins at the budget and team manager level. So staffing needs are recommended at the program level, actually. So what do we need to do to facilitate this program, event, or manage this facility? Then those needs are reviewed at the manager level with a recommendation to the team manager or whatever it may be. And the final action is taken at the director level to say, yes, we're going to expend these funds on this position or not. So personnel costs overall are identified at the lowest level. So they can be collated at the program, division, and agency levels. And then we look at the budget preparation from the lowest level up to give a best possible budget picture. Salary savings can occur when positions are vacant temporarily or have been eliminated. So if you think about that, when one person retires and they have a 2 to 3 month window before they hire the next person, they're not paying for that position for a couple of months, which results in a savings overall. Or if they eliminate somebody and don't replace them right away or at all, it results in a net savings. So then we can look at contracted services, and these are specific services that are contracted externally. So they're not part of our organization, but we pay for those services anyway. A lot of times these are specialized services and skills. Sometimes they're used to replace full-time staff, but not as often as part-time staff. They have become more common in government for specific needs and specific jobs. They can be seen as an alternative to expanding the workforce. So if we only need somebody for a specific task or a specific timeline, we can contract that service out rather than hire someone. And they're seen as a way to reduce personnel cost overall, A lot of time with contracted work, you're not having to incur the fringe benefits and stuff like that. And then usually you have to actually sign an agreement. So it's called a contractual agreement for work performed and stuff like that. Now let's look at materials and supplies. This is frequently the second largest budget item in the budget. And management of this budget and management of procuring the supplies is critical. So these are items that are designed to be used and replaced on an annual basis, right? So we're talking about paper, staples, whatever can be used up during that time frame. Inventories are often maintained, monitored, or flagged when replacement is required. So we have an ongoing inventory, if you will. Then the annual budget review of the previous 3 years gives insight to our planned budget impact for materials and supplies. So we're not just looking at last year. Last year could be a sharp increase or decrease for whatever reason. So we're going to look at several years in the past to get a good idea of how much materials and supplies we really need. Then we can look at equipment, and that typically has a longer life expectancy. This is over many years. Example could be fitness equipment, computers, vehicles, fitness machines, maintenance equipment, things that are going to last a while. There's specifications detailing the type of equipment typically prepared in detail for purchasing and in repair, and the development of replacement schedules for each item along with the maintenance schedule. So what we're looking at here is making sure that these items are maintained properly so that they're optimally used throughout their lifespan. And then we have a schedule for replacement so that we're not caught without an item. So if we need a lawnmower for the park, we know that the lifespan is about 5 years. So in about 5 years, we need to plan on purchasing a new one. Overall, when we review budget estimates, we need to make sure there's a continuous flow of information throughout the process, coming and going, getting information, giving information. It's a mix of a formal and informal communication throughout the process. Budget managers can have individual meetings with their supervisor and others to make sure that their estimates for projected revenue and expenditures are on par. And finally, the final review and approval is by some kind of governing body. So whether this is public or nonprofit, we do have some kind of oversight with that budget and some kind of approval with that budget regarding a governing body. That concludes our budget basics, work plans, and cost estimates.